In 1776, the United States achieved its independence from Britain through a war which was called the American Revolutionary War. Now, this meant that Britain, or United Kingdom as we know it today, had lost its most lucrative colony, which was producing so much sugar for it and cotton, such that Britain, during that period, using slavery, African slave labor, was the biggest supplier of sugar and cotton in Europe. Now, when Britain lost this colony in the United States, it turned around and started fighting against France and claiming that slavery is not good. And what was hidden behind Britain's fight against, France, it was because of economic supremacy. So rather than saying that it was because the British cared very much about slavery and that they loved the Africans very much, it can be said that it was because of economic, gain and the fear that France would overtake it economically within Europe. And therefore, there was a need to fight against France. Now, why am I saying this? We are in the age of renewable energy. We have entered the era of renewable energy. And you have heard words like climate change ever since the 2018 climate summit, Paris climate summit that happened in France, again, the same country. Now, during this period, the European countries have preached very much about climate change. And this preaching about climate change has led them to say and even push Africa towards Africa not using its renewable energy. I mean, its non-renewable resources, its fossil fuels like petroleum and crude oil. Mind you, the European countries are still, extracting Africa's oil and non-renewable resources. They are still extracting, as we see that Chevron is still very much present, in Nigeria and other African countries like Gabon and Equatorial Guinea and the others, which we can talk of later on. Now, the European countries have led this struggle for climate change. But what is hidden behind this? If you rip out the curtain and look what is behind the curtain, it is sheer hypocrisy. While they are preaching to Africa that it is important to adopt renewable energies, they are gobbling up Russian gas and they are gobbling up even coal from South Africa, which is being transported to Europe. And of course, our renewable energy, our non-renewable energy, our fossil fuel resources, our hydrocarbon resources. Now, while they are doing this, they are also sending dirty fuels. Some of the most dirty fuels from European refineries are coming to Africa. And some of these fuels are so dirty that they are even cancer-causing fuels to the African people. They have not stopped there, these fuels, at causing cancer to the Africans, what they call carcinogenic fuels, but they have also destroyed some of the vehicles. We have had these complaints in various countries, especially in West Africa and Nigeria in particular. Now, recently, an article was published and the reports have come out that the Belgians and the Europeans are banning dirty fuel from coming to the African continent. And their claim is that they care about Africans. That is the claim. and therefore they don't want to transport carcinogenic fuels, to the African continent. That is the claim, to save lives and because of climate change. But a closer look tells us that these Europeans are not the ones who initiated this fight against these dirty fuels on the African continent, as we are going to see. On the 12th, between the 12th and the 13th, Dangote, was in the Caribbean, in the Barbados, where the Africa Import and Export Bank has expanded its reach to reach the people of African descent, so that the African people both on the continent and in the diaspora can work together. So Dangote was attending AFREXIM, Africa Import and Export Bank annual general meetings, which happened in Barbados. During this meeting, Dangote mentioned that some people are importing dirty fuels into Africa, and those fuels are carcinogenic and they are dirty. And a lot of few people, of course, they did not take him seriously. And on that same meeting, he mentioned his famous words that there is oil mafias within the African continent, and the oil mafias are stronger than the drug mafias, both the external and internal, both the foreign, in the name of international oil companies, which he did not mention on that particular date as international oil companies, but he mentioned there is international oil mafias and there is also local oil mafias. But as his refinery has gone on to ramp up its effort of producing more fuel for Nigeria and the general West African region, and of course the whole sub-Saharan Africa, which does not have functional refineries, this oil mafia has come out to expose itself and has come out to reveal itself. And that includes the European countries themselves being part of that mafia, whereby they have come out and we have now come to know them for who they are in this sense. Now, I will take you to Dangote's remarks, which he made when he was in Barbados about the oil mafia and the importation of dirty fuels into Nigeria and, of course, Africa.
About fuel quality in Africa. And I mean, I don't know how many of you here in the audience know that there's something called, African quality.
Yes.
African quality fuel. And you know what that is? Very dirty, very polluting fuel.
Yes,
high
it is very
sulfur.
high sulfur,
So what's happening
very
there?
polluting, and also when you look at it, that's why especially in Nigeria, of recently in the last few years, we've been having cases of cancer.
Yes.
And most of these cases, cancer cases, they are to do with the bad fuel that we've been using. So I will advise even here, you should check the quality, what is being dumped in your own region in the Caribbean, because quality is key, is very, very important. You can see, I mean, last 2.5 weeks or so, the Belgian government banned export of anything over and above 10 ppm, because that is what they consume. What they said, okay, fine, from Antwerp, nobody is allowed to export what we don't consume domestically, which is very good.
So just so you understand, it's 10 parts per million of sulfur.
Yes.
So what is the parts per million of sulfur in African quality fuel?
We bought one in June from one of the trading companies, and it was actually 3,000.
3,000.
Yes.
So now you get into this business, you realize that the fuel quality is really awful coming into the continent. So just so we understand the supply chain, Nigeria exports good quality raw crude and re-imports.
In fact, Nigeria's crude attracts the most premium.
The most premium.
So that's how good.
And yet imports the dirtiest.
The dirtiest, yes.
I mean, I don't even know what to say on that.
Well,
is that regulation?
Most of the other, it's not regulation, but now there's regulation, so it is, upon the regulator to enforce the regulation.
And it's very important to do that. I mean, there's, again, the trading companies that are doing this, and the contradiction and the hypocrisy on climate change.
Yeah, I think we have seen. So Dangote already mentioned that. And of course, the hypocrisy continues, especially from these European countries. Now that they are coming out strongly, claiming that they care so much about climate change, especially when it comes to Africa. And they are prohibiting Africa even to use its resources. And therefore came President Dangote. And of course, when Dangote, fought, hugely, he fought hugely. Then we have started seeing these oil mafias, even how they're working internally in Nigeria itself to undermine the Dangote oil refinery in the name, of course, of regulators, which he has already spoken about. But let us see some of his remarks, which he made after the oil mafias within Nigeria started attacking the refinery. And they are importing these dirty fuels into Nigeria. And they were claiming at the same time that Dangote's fuel is bad. Because remember, we were talking about neocolonialism here and imperialism and how it works when it comes to our countries in Africa and the global south. This Nkrumah taught us. And so all our programs at Connect Africa, we have endeavored to break it down. That is why our videos are short, because we cannot let you sit in at once for you to be able to understand what we are talking about. It will be a long journey for us. But we have endeavored to explain how interconnectedness imperialism is, how neocolonialism is, because Nkrumah spent so much time in doing an analysis on African society because he wanted us to have a unified continent, but more so, not just for the unification's sake, but Nkrumah wanted us to have a rapidly advancing continent. Reconstruction, what he called the reconstruction. We are supposed to have reconstruction, and we are supposed to deliver some of the most, improved lives for our people on the African continent. And that can only come through unity. Imperialism, of course, fought against that. Now, Nkrumah struggled to analyze the forces which are fighting against Africa's interests. And that included, of course, the imperialist forces and the internal forces within. And on this subject, he dedicated, all his life, and he dedicated, you know, three good books: Africa Must Unite, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and he dedicated another book specifically in analyzing the internal forces within the continent and how they are working with the external forces to undermine Africa's interests. And that book is called Class Struggle in Africa. He analyzed how the Africans in the middle class, some of the Africans in the middle class and in the ruling class are conniving with the Western powers to undermine Africa's interests. And in Nigeria, in particular, and which is the same in other African countries, and the solution, of course, is supposed to be the same, that these people have to be removed from power. Now, the subject of how to remove them from power, that is for another day, which of course requires discussion among the people who want to carry out that particular task. But the solution, according to Nkrumah, these people have to be removed from power. That is the solution. Now, in Nigeria, like I said, it is the same with other African countries. These elements are within the government. They are working within the government and they are working within the regulatory bodies. They are the ones who are undermining the interests of the African people, as we are going to see with what Dangote is saying once again. So let's go to Dangote.
I've seen also in the quality that they are talking about. Yes, when we started, we started with about 700 ppm.
Wow! Whoa. Hey, stop! Hello! Hey!
Which is true. That is where we started because it was a new plant. We have not commissioned most of them. So by the time that we finished, now we have commissioned part of it. So I'm actually surprised for somebody to come and mention that yes, we have a bad quality. We and the other modular refineries. I can't talk about the quality of the modular refineries, but our own today, like what I said, our own production, you have seen, we have tested it, is 87 ppm. And by the time you come, even on Monday, we'll be at 50. By beginning of August, end of this month, beginning of August, we'll be at 10 ppm. Okay. Our flash point, you've seen the tests that we have run, and Your Excellency, Sir, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Honorable Speaker, the leadership of the House, I want you to even at any time set up a committee that they will come with every representatives headed by your chosen honorable member to come and lead in taking samples from filling stations. Because I must tell you today that all the test certificates that people are busy, floating around, where are the labs? Even if they have the labs, I can tell you they are fake certificates. The real one that you now know that they are right is to take from the filling station and also to come and take also from our production line. Now you will be able to tell Nigerians that this is it. But the marketing of a company by a regulator that he's supposed to protect, it is very, very unfortunate. It's good that we didn't even know that you are going to ask us to stop by the road and pick up diesel. And we didn't know what you wanted to do. And when we got here, I said, okay, fine, let them go and take sample. And the chairman downstream of the house and the chairman midstream of the house went with our people to pick up a hot sample. They brought, you've tested, and you've seen where we are. So we want to clear that, yes, we produce the best diesel in Nigeria. And if the regulator wants, he can come 24 hours anytime. He has people here. Let him conduct this. And I would like to also the media to show our lab, and I want them to also show the lab of the regulator himself. He should show us which lab is he using. Yes, because as a regulator, he's supposed to have a lab. If regulator doesn't have a lab, then we have an issue. He cannot rely on somebody. He's supposed to, check us. So that's one. Another complaint that I had, which I think the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker also raised with me, say, okay, why did we drop the price of diesel?
Okay, so this is Dangote's position. So what is surprising about the Dangote's oil refinery is that the fuel which he's producing, actually, it has been found that is being even exported to Europe. The Europeans now, they are taking Dangote's fuel. This is the fuel the Dangote, the Nigerian regulator, he's claiming that is not the same quality as the imported fuel. Now Dangote was the first person to sound the alarm that the fuel which is being imported into Nigeria is a dirty fuel, as you are seeing. And of course, he also mentioned that some people have, mixing facilities outside of Nigeria, and they are importing dirty fuel into Nigeria. And of course, it is the regulator, the Nigerian regulator, which is a government organization, that is importing the dirty fuel. So, to put it precisely, the people who are importing the dirty fuels into Nigeria, they are those people, who are the mafias. Those are the mafias he was talking about, and they are integrated within the government. Now, what confirms that the West has been really importing dirty fuels into the African continent is this article, which was published later on June 24th. Remember, Dangote spoke in Barbados, but he had actually later, earlier on, spoken about the same issue, in Kigali, when there was African CEO Forum. All right, that was earlier on. I think it was in May. And then in June, on the 13th, he spoke in, in Barbados, all right, at the Africa Import and Export, Bank, annual general meetings. Now, on 24th June, which we are seeing here, this is when this article, appeared that Belgium was banning the export of dirty fuels to Nigeria and the West African region. So this is just their own implication. This is the implication. They self-implicated into this, what they have been doing to the Africans. So our people have been maybe dying of diseases. We don't know what people are dying of. People are, their vehicles are destroying. This is all cost on an economy. All right. But now the other thing which we are seeing is that they are fighting at the same time against the Dangote oil refinery. The same people, like we said, when you analyze imperialism, you need to understand that it is a system, it's a huge system that is integrated, including military, economics, banks, the media. We have analyzed the media here and broken it down for you. You can go back in some of the videos we have published on Connect Africa. The videos are there analyzed for you, how fake media has been attacking Dangote oil refineries. The videos are over there. You can look at them. We have analyzed for you imperialism so that you will be able to understand. So take time and watch those videos one by one to understand how this system works. The military, the media, the banks, all of them, it is a system which was built. And the best person who analyzed this system is Kwame Nkrumah, who dedicated a full book on the system in analyzing it. The book is called Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism. I would encourage every African to go and read that book. It is a very important book. And if you cannot read the whole book, at least read one chapter, which is called The Mechanisms of Neocolonialism. This particular chapter, you can even find it on the internet for free and read it. You can just Google it and read it. The Mechanisms of Neocolonialism. It talks about Hollywood. It talks about the media. It talks about the United States military. It talks about everything. It talks about religion, how the religion is being used, how the United States carries itself. Mind you, Nkrumah wrote this in 1965, but it is very relevant to and in the particular case of Dangote, you can see it with your own eyes. If you read what Nkrumah had written, you start seeing it with your own eyes. Because Dangote spoke about, when he was in Barbados, he spoke about the fact that the foreign banks wanted Dangote refinery to fail. And what was those foreign banks? It was this, I think it was Standard Chartered Bank. All right, it was Standard Chartered Bank, which lent Dangote some money. So they wanted the refinery to fail. They were working very hard to see that the refinery fails. Now, Zakia Katabi, Belgium's Minister of Environment, announced that the country has banned the export of toxic fuels that are domestically prohibited. So now what happens is that the fuels which are prohibited in Belgium and Europe, they have always been shipped to West Africa. They are domestically prohibited, but continue to be shipped to West African nations, including Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. This comes following the assent of a new legislation that seeks to tighten the quality of exported fuels. But do these people really care about Africa? No, they don't. They don't. What we are reading in this is this. They read the signs that the Dangote oil refinery was starting, and the fuel from the Dangote oil refinery was going to be better, as you have seen Dangote mentioning. His fuel has a quality currently of 87 parts per million of sulfur. The European fuel, which is being imported, it has 3,000 parts per million of sulfur. So this is how much sulfur content. So compare with Dangote. Dangote's fuel is the best quality, high quality. And that is why even it is being exported to the United States, being exported to European countries themselves. They are importing now Dangote's fuel because it is the best. It is one of the best in the world. And Dangote said it's going to get better. His fuel is going to get better. So they have already read the signs. Now they are pretending that they care about Africa. That is simply because the market is being taken away from them. The market is being taken away from them. And in the future, we're going to see an increased pressure on Africa that Africa should not drill to take out its own hydrocarbons. That is what we are going to see. And of course, we had already started seeing this. that the West was putting pressure on the East African oil pipeline, which is being constructed between Uganda and Tanzania, which is 1,400 kilometers. They have been putting pressure that we should not build the refinery. Mind you, the United States is building pipelines in Louisiana. There's a pipeline which they are building. They are building even other pipelines. They are not talking about their own pipelines which they are building. They are concentrating on us. So there's a deliberate attempt to attack Africa's progress. So they claim that the ban targets oil companies that export motor fuels, primarily from Antwerp, which is in Belgium, with excessively high sulfur. Look at the word. That's the key word. They are exporting with excessively high sulfur or benzene content that have long been banned in Europe due to their harmful effects. Now, this is what they have been feeding us for years since independence. This is what they have been doing to us as a continent because they don't respect us as a people. And they export this both to Africa and the Caribbean. All right. So data shows that the oil companies have been exporting dirty fuels with a sulfur content as high as 1,500 parts per million. A sulfur content of 1,500. Okay. Remember, I said Dangote is producing only currently, even when he's still fine-tuning the refinery. Remember, he said he's going to produce 10 parts per million. So Europe is sending to us 1,500. When Dangote took the fuel from the petrol stations, including Total, which is a French company, which is a French petroleum company, the fuel tested at 1,800 parts per million. Very dirty fuel. Far exceeding European standards that are kept at 10 parts per million. And of course, Dangote said that his refinery is going to tune it and is going to produce 10 parts per million, which is the highest quality standard of global standards. Now, in a statement on May 23rd, the Belgian minister addressed the risk of that fuel. This is the pretense now that we have been talking about. Exports, he claimed that exports having shifted from the Netherlands to Belgium, underscoring the health risks of high sulfur products. He claimed that for far too long, toxic fuels have departed from Belgium to destinations, including Africa. They cause extremely poor air quality in countries such as Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon, and are even carcinogenic. That is what she said. That is what the minister said, the Belgian minister. He said they are carcinogenic. This is self-implicating. The person is implicating themselves. Meanwhile, low-quality gasoline imports from Northwest Europe remain the key, even up to today. They remain a key source of motor fuel in West Africa without significant domestic production. Because in Africa, the refineries have been collapsed. They themselves, the imperialists who are refining these fuels, plus the multinational companies who Dangote called them the mafias, have been working with the internal mafias to collapse Nigeria's 4 refineries, which have a capacity of 450,000 barrels per day. Combined, the 4 refineries which Nigeria have, they should be able to produce fuel to meet Nigeria's needs, at least 70% of it. But they have been working together. Now they are claiming here that the low quality gasoline imports from Europe, they remain the key source of motor fuel. They are the key source of fuel for West Africa because West Africa is without domestic production. So according to S&P Global Commodities at C data, West Africa imported about 137,000 barrels per day of gasoline from Belgium in April. This is 2024, comprising 33% of imports for its primary motor fuel. Now, the share has increased from 18% of West Africa imports in April 2023. The same month, the Netherlands imposed a ban. Now, when the Netherlands imposed a ban, Belgium increased its exports of those dirty fuels to Africa. And now it is now that they are coming out to claim that they care about the African continent. So which is, of course, ridiculous, which is very ridiculous. Okay, so let me show you another article once more, which buttresses this point very well for us to be able to understand really what these people have been doing to our continent. And of course, the Caribbean. Now, this is what announces it all and why they have been fighting against a Dangote oil refinery. This is what announces it all, why they have been attacking the Dangote oil refinery. Why? Because Dangote oil refinery is seen as a refinery which is going to lead to the closure of business in Europe when it comes to refining, and especially they are all the refineries which they are operating were built, some of them in the 50s, the 40s and the 50s. They are all the refineries. They don't produce quality fuel like what Dangote is producing, and that is why a lot of them are importing fuel from the African continent, as Mahlet will come and expand on that and show you which countries specifically are importing, from the African continent and from Dangote. They are importing the refined fuel from Dangote. So Dangote Petroleum Refinery, they say, will most likely put pressure on at least 90 European refineries, which are at risk of closure from heightened competition. Remember, we did an analysis here, and we said that the Europeans, the reason why they collapsed Africa's industry, because they didn't like competition. That is in the 70s when we had captured about 7% of global manufacturing. They came with the structural adjustments and they collapsed all the industries on the African continent. And now our share of global manufacturing is around 3%, less than 4%. We are around 3% now. So, in essence, since independence, with our forefathers and foremothers who brought independence, we have actually regressed as the African continent, even though some people think that we have made progress. We have not really made progress. So, they are looking at Dangote refinery as something that is going to put pressure on at least 90 European refineries, which are at risk of closure from competition, according to findings by Business Day. Now, for decades, listen to this. European refiners have enjoyed a lucrative market. Listen to the word which they are using. For decades, the European refiners of fuel, of oil, have enjoyed a lucrative market in Nigeria as an unreliable power supply from the national grid forces companies across Africa's fourth biggest economy to rely heavily on imported refined products with a net value of over $17 billion annually. So look at how much. Actually, this figure is around $20 billion. That's how much they are extracting from Nigeria. That's how much they are extracting from Nigeria alone. Now, add onto that the African continent. Actually, we looked at the value of Africa's consumption, and it's more than 100 billion every year. The whole African continent, 100 billion. And that's how much Shell, Total, all these companies are extracting from the African continent. All these companies and the European countries and the Arabic countries who are exporting their refined fuel onto the African continent is around $100 billion, more than 100 billion. That is what we looked at. So Nigeria alone is around, even though they are mentioning $17 billion, is actually around $20 billion. Because remember, Dangote said that his refinery, when it starts operating at the peak, it will make around $25 billion in Nigeria alone. That's the revenue it will bring in. So it tells you that the money is more than $20 billion. That's how much they are making. And they will keep quiet. So the misfortune when people are suffering within the country and they are scraping, there's no power, they are using generators and buying all this fuel. The Europeans are growing rich and they are enjoying and they are happy that we are in these kind of situations. So they are saying, now listen to this. Traders and shipping data seen by the Business Day showed that Nigeria's new Dangote refinery is ramping up gas oil exports to West Africa, capturing market share from European refineries. All right, as much as 300 to 400,000 barrels per day of refining capacity in Europe is at risk of closure because of rising global gasoline production. Is at risk of closure because of rising global production, including Dangote. So data revealed that the European Union and UK gasoline exports to West Africa fell to a 4-year low of 29,000 barrels per day. So it's not only Belgium which is exporting. The whole of the European Union, including the United Kingdom, are exporting these fuels. And mind you, they send us the bad fuels. Analysts say European refineries' loss of market share to the Dangote refinery will be problematic to them. Okay, analysts have said the European refineries' loss of market share to the Dangote oil refinery will be problematic for them. So now we can see the people who have been fighting the Dangote oil refinery, both external and internal. They are just being exposed by themselves. Remember, Dangote said that he's a fighter, he's going to fight. He's going to fight until the end because the people are on his side. And he has convinced at least the Nigerian House of Representatives to be on his side. And that's why he brought them to the refinery. So these dirty fuels they have been bringing, they have been causing diseases to our people. They have been causing a lot of problems even to vehicles. And loss of this is loss. Because if your vehicle dies, then you are in problems. You have to buy another one. It's loss. So the loss of the West African market will be problematic for a small set of refineries that do not have the kit to upgrade their gasoline to European and US specification. All right. So European and US specification, high quality. So now they are thinking about upgrading their refineries because they are antiquated. Their refineries are antiquated. They are for producing bad fuel, which is for the African continent. Now they are thinking how will they upgrade their refineries to those levels. So this is the problem. So they have actually self-implicated themselves. They have self-implicated themselves. And they are fearing that the Dangote oil refinery is going to become dominant on the African continent to replace them. So around 30 European refineries have shut down since 2009. Data from refining industry body Kakwe showed that more than 90 could go with Dangote refinery. More than 90 of refineries are going to shut down. So we can see the people who have been fighting against the Dangote oil refinery. And it is the same people who have been sending the dirty fuel, on the African continent. So what do you think that we as Africans now we should do? How should we approach this particular issue when it comes to protecting African interests? Because we have a challenge, like we've said. We have those in power, and they are protecting those in power protecting the interests of the colonialists, who have conquered our markets. Remember, we did an analysis here, and I told you that the reason the Europeans came here is because of markets and raw materials, and you can see this with your very own eyes from Nkrumah's analysis, and all the analysis which Nkrumah did for us to try to teach us what is happening in the world. You can see the analysis for yourself. Now put your suggestions in the comment section. Let us have a discussion on this, because it is until we have a discussion with ourselves as Africans, that's when we will find a solution. When we understand the purpose of Nkrumah's analysis of these situations and writing, he wrote a lot of books. And at the end of the day, Nkrumah said that I'm confident, I'm in the knowledge that death can never extinguish the torch I've lit in Ghana and across Africa. He said that long after I'm gone, the torch will continue to burn and be carried on and give light to all people and give light and guidance to all people. This is what Nkrumah said, that the torch he has lit will continue to guide on, the next generations and give them guidance. He was talking about the books he has written down. He had written 21 books and pamphlets. So he dedicated his life to us understanding these things so that we can get the courage to deal with them. So, and for us, once we have understood what is happening, then we can get the courage to deal with these particular problems. So let us have a discussion. What do you think yourself that we should do? You know, seriously, on a very serious note, because we're going to come to the comment section and we're going to have this discussion. And, you know, the Juma, we thank you, everyone, S.S. Smith, S&S, everyone, child of God, you know, Zanpal, everyone, we thank you for being part of this. You know, put the comments in the, in the section, in the comment section, you know, put the suggestions in the comment section, what you think that we should do. What do you think we should do about the challenges that are facing us as this generation? Because remember, Franz Fanon, what he said, that every generation must find its mission and either fulfill it or betray it. And many people have been saying that the generation which came after the independence generation betrayed their mission. That's why we are where we are. We didn't make improvements. We actually regressed, as we have seen when it comes to industrialization. We regressed because it is ironic, it is pathetic, it is, unbelievable, unfathomable to be that the African continent does not have a single refinery that is functional within the sub-Saharan Africa. And Dangote has mentioned it. And he said that the Dangote oil refinery is going to be a game changer for sub-Saharan Africa. So it's not just for Nigeria. Now, how do we deal with these problems that are confronting us as a people? By talking about it. So put your suggestions down in the comment section. I'll be there and pass through them myself. And then, of course, we're going to sit together. Our generation must find a solution. We either find a solution in our generation to the problem, like Franz Fanon. Every generation must find its mission and fulfill it or betray it. I believe, personally, I believe that our generation has to make a change. And we have already started seeing the pressure, mounting all across the African continent. But there's no predetermined strategy, of course. So how do you think that we should deal with it? Put those suggestions in the comment section. I want to read them myself. I want to read those comments in the, I want to read those suggestions in the comment section. Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of Connect Africa. Please subscribe to the channel and like. I'm seeing 40 people, online. Please like, the video and share it with others, because we want to defeat the algorithm, because the algorithm itself, it is attacking us because we are talking about imperialism. And of course, all of you know we are on an imperialistic platform. So whatever you do in liking the video, you fight against the algorithm and the fact that it may want to, to put us down, and sabotage us so that we don't grow as fast as possible, as required, because of the things, of course, that we are talking about. So when you like the video, when you share the video, with others, and make sure you watch all of the video, don't jump through. That helps the algorithm to pick it and then suggest it to other people, because what we want is to reach as many Africans as possible. And we cannot do that without your help. So 43 likes currently. I'm seeing people online. Do that liking and share the video. Like the video and invite other people to the platform. Share the channel with other people so that they can be invited to the platform, so that we can learn together and wage this struggle together, because we shall win. Thank you so much, and God bless you, all of you.